Councillor Barker.
I won't get into that level of detail, but I hope to have made the point.
I'd like to turn to the issue of the generating capacity that's potential in this and see that we're not doing anything here. My question is, just thinking the other night about this, it's a tragic loss in my view, but would it be possible for us to have a company within a company that, for example, this council, just hypothetically, says, well, it wants to proceed with installing the generator, that when the construction's on, the council pays for the generator to go in, and then has a company which then, carries the wins and losses of it. So it's nothing. The RWLS has nothing to do with it. So we're building the dam, we're building it, for generating, but without. Could we then, council, make its own decision to put the generating capacity in at its cost, and then run it as a separate company within the RWLS?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. In principle.
Yes, fine.
That principle is absolutely fine. So there's no reason why a third party, I'll use the word third party. So what if you look at the way the whole system is being designed, the dam is being designed to accommodate generation. Sure. So it's a matter of a slotted in process, right? If a third party sees value in that, value in taking that position, and is prepared to reflect some of their value back to the scheme itself through maybe a rental of some form, then that option's on the table, and there is one party who has verbally raised that as being quite attractive.
Well, the point is that here we are. We've put up 20 million basically, thick end of, to get us to this point. We're going to put in $80 million worth of capital. We're hardly a third party. I know technically and legally we are, but I would like to have your views on the HBRC's views on whether it would be possible for this council, and what the circumstances would be for the council to become the owner of a generator and become a generator.
Well, certainly happy to take that back to, HBRC is looking for more opportunities to help council create more regional economic benefits. So happy to look at that.
Very good.
Would it not be an option when the dividend flows start running to invest in that? Just as it's an option to invest in additional environmental flows.
The reason that we haven't had a commercial uptake of this concept to date is that people have looked at the cost of electricity and the cost of generating it, and the return that you can get hasn't currently justified it in this particular environment. But it's not to say that in 5 to 10 years that will not be the case. Certainly over the 70-year period.
In a 70-year period, there'll be generation there almost for sure.
But the thing about it is, what I'd like to know, is it cheaper? It seems to me to go and retrofit generators after something's up and running is going to be more expensive and challenging than do it when you're on the job. No,
it's not, Rick. It's simply, there's two bits of gear in really simple terms. This is the generator, and there's the high voltage transmission line from the generator to the on substation. Sure. So it's two pieces. They can be slotted in really easily. There's even more, for what it's worth, there's about another about another megawatt of generation in the head race.
So there's another megawatt of what?
Generation in the head race.
Sure. So I believe that too.
So it's not complicated.
Well, can someone do us a paper on so we can see the maths of this?
I don't have a problem with that.
Happy to do that.
Good idea. It's a good idea.
And I ask it because I just want to make, I'll make a point in some out. I've got a very good reason for this.
Look forward to it. Other questions? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Grant.
It was number 106. I guess I have a request here, and that is that a sentence be removed, the one in brackets, and subject to potential reduction. So the issue of it is, the issue of 106 is that there is no material adverse change to the projected environmental benefits, which was the original point. But that second point is not material to the original proposition or subsequent vote in June 2014. this is an additional thing, and it's contentious. So it's nothing to do with where we are. We voted on the environmental impact as was originally presented, and this is additional.
Could I perhaps clarify that from because you're talking, Councillor Graham, about the additional 4 million cubic metres?
Well, in the first instance, it's
Yes.
unclear because it needs, if you leave it in, it needs to have 4 additional environmental flows.
Okay.
So
So,
it's a
so
word
that,
missing
so
anyway.
that was included in the availability of that water and the potential use of it was included in the original base case in June 2014. The only difference between then and now is the mechanism by which council would get that water. Back in June 2014, it was in the draft concession deed, and council would indicate on an annual basis how much it would want to buy. The proposal, the environmental flows proposal that we've recently consulted on, just changes that mechanism to be an upfront foundation water user agreement, which commits council over that 35-year period, but it also includes the use of free flows. But the fundamental principle of council having that additional water available for environmental benefits was included in the draft, in the June 2014 business case. So, in a sense, what's been written there in the brackets is correct because there was no longer be that potential benefit from the use of water.
I accept that explanation, but could we add 4 additional in front of environmental flows then?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be You happy to, Chairman, are you just happy for me to make a generic comment around the environmental, so the,
I'm
just wanna
normally
pick up on
happy,
a
but
point. Sorry, I just want to make this point though, I think this is an important bit of context, is that the scheme per se, if you look at its consent conditions, what it's obliged to do, what it's been able to graft on through financial instruments, i.e. reducing groundwater abstraction, etc., return flows, is create a proposition that in the main works well for the main tributaries, right? That's the Tuki tributary, the Waipawa tributary, the main stem of the Tuki. You can add the Papanui stream into that, assume zone N's consented, you add the Margatarata stream. But the point is, there's a whole lot of other waterways in that entire catchment where the scheme and its consent don't make a positive difference. So if you want to take a holistic catchment approach to it and deal with a large number of other streams in the catchment, there are 17 tributaries in the Tuki, of which most originate in the headwaters around the Ruhinis, therefore in the Ruataniwha Basin, with 1 or 2 exceptions, then that's where the HBRC, in my view, that's where the HBRC flows would add additional value, right?
okay.
Well, Mr Chairman, that needs to be
I agree.
included in this paper that's been prepared by someone.
Absolutely, yeah. In the terms of reference, I'm absolutely right. Okay, any further questions around this? Councillor Scott.
I've got, and they're not specific to the paper, they're slightly higher level questions. The first is around risk analysis. You referred earlier to the fact that Deloitte's you are assuming, will come back with the upside and downside case, but are you satisfied that throughout this economic analysis that you have looked at a full risk analysis around that and are confident in the recommendations that you have given on the economic returns?
Certainly will be before we come back with the final paper. You know, there has been ongoing risk analysis and review, and I think that we have also taken confidence from the fact that not only are we doing that and doing it on our own numbers and on our own models, but that the institutional investor and CIIL have also undertaken that same type of work using different advisors and have come to a similar decision to invest. So we are confident, but we will do that final check again before we come back to council and recommend it to you.
And just following up from that, you've shared that with us fairly frequently, have you not? And is it readily available in the public arena?
Specifically, Christine?
That run the
Thanks.
economic risk analysis.
Oh, there's a fair bit of information in the public domain. There'll be more information in the public domain as the consequence of the board's recommendation to you when it's there. So yes, look, I guess if I was making a broad point, the Ruataniwha deal started it started alongside Plan Change 6 as in a sense of looking at it both a problem to be solved and an opportunity. A lot of the early work around the feasibility was to assess the parameters of that opportunity, but equally the risk. And in the development phase, the whole point about the development phase is that it's essentially unpicking risk continuously all the time. That's what's been going on now for a good 3 years. So we're all a bit sort of over-risked, aren't we, today at times?
Yes, and you do find yourself becoming very, very conservative and then having to take another view and say, actually.
Councillor Bevan, possibly a chance to catch up with at morning tea, which is not far away. Thank you.
But yeah, you see, so the real point is that the whole development phase process is here's an opportunity, but you've actually got to fundamentally deal. In the end, getting the deal done means you've done absolutely huge amount of work around risk assessment, and you've assigned that risk contractually to the best place able to deal with the risk. Hence the construction contract and the risk parameters around the construction contract. So that's been going on now for over 3 years, and we have, both the HBRC board, the various teams of people involved in this thing, the institutional investor, Crown Irrigation, and other parties have done a massive amount of work on risk. And I see, Alan, you've arrived down the back. You know the process. We've spent most of our focuses on risk, correct? Yeah. Continue.
And my second question, if we could come to the final recommendation, which isn't repeated in this paper but in your business case, is around the reasons for investing. And you actually state in that it fits within the Council's strategic agenda, targeting sustainable natural resource management. It's part of an integrated approach to managing the Tuki catchment, has substantial environmental, economic and social value, will achieve commercial viability, will build shareholder value and ultimately improve the Council's financial position. There's a lot of misconception out there in the public that the ratepayer is paying for this and subsidising the people who benefit from taking the water. Your position as our investment company is actually to get a return on investment, and according to your statement of intent, possibly a slower road to investment where you get both improved economic and environmental and social benefits for the community. So are you satisfied that this isn't actually ratepayers paying to build the scheme and subsidising farmers, but is in fact an investment and a sound investment?
Completely, and I think that the point in the paper at clause 10, where it actually refers to the fact that we've got all of these huge environmental benefits, which just won't be there unless we have the RWSS, and there may be reasons not to invest in the RWSS, but I haven't made that decision yet. To date, everything is indicating that we should invest, and those benefits are, Plan Change 6 was a great piece of work and a brave decision by the council to force through, but everyone recognised that it was going to have a huge economic impact. I'm trying to think what it was. It was sort of something between $14 and $60 million. And we have, with bringing to you the RWSS, and when we finally do actually recommend that we do the final stages of it, we will actually have solved that economic crisis that was facing the region by bringing in Plan Change 6 without anything else to support the farming community and the businesses that feed off that. Plus we're getting the environmental benefits. So I think that yes, we can be happy we will have to achieve, as per the SOI, the 6% return over the entire life of the project. It will be a slower route to that because we perceive these economic benefits and environmental benefits, and I think it's a very positive story, as you say.
The point I'd add is that over the 70-year life of the scheme, it's those parties who take water and pay a charge for that water who ultimately pay for the scheme.
Yeah.
And not only that, they pay for the environmental components driven into the consent framework. There's been a legitimate, in my view, view at times in New Zealand where those parties who benefit, for example, from that access to that public resource don't pay for that stuff. In this case, they do, and that is not the case for a lot of irrigation schemes throughout this country, actually. So it is a substantially different position.
Thank you, Councillor Pipe.
Yeah, not to labour the point at all, but just to follow on from Councillor Scott's risk analysis aspect, and there are some people within our community that are concerned about the possible impact on ratepayers that they may be asked to dip into their pockets again at some stage. In 74, you talk about the bleak and extremely unlikely scenario for water sales, and investors not getting their planned returns. I mean, I guess what ratepayers are wanting is some sort of ironclad guarantee that, there's not going to be a call on rates in the future for something unseen. And I guess that's what you're trying to allay in this. Are you quite confident that is going to be the case?
Well, the minimum is, as I guess, the minimum uptake number creates a cash flow, and that cash flow was designed to be at a threshold that didn't require any more calls on capital. That was the origin of it, and that's the reason for it. So, between ourselves and the other investors in this deal, we've spent a huge amount of time analysing the uptake curve trajectory and the various scenarios around it, and you name it, that really starts to deliver some returns. That's been a massive amount of focus in there, and it's not all, there's independent work done by the institutional investor in that space. So they didn't rely on absolutely what we said. They went away and spent a significant amount of money, time and effort, and a different process to arrive at a particular conclusion. So,
Are you saying that there's any concern by ratepayers is unfounded?
well, provided that provided that cash flow is there, absolutely. And that's the point. Yeah, if you took it, David, if you took it right back to the point that Danielle's making as a director, and a certificate of enforceability of the contracts, that's what that's about.
Any further questions? Someone happy to take us to the recommendation then? Happy to move, Councillor Scott. Second, Councillor Barker. You wish to speak, Councillor Scott?
Yes, I would like to comment on the paper, Mr. Chairman, and thank HBRC for such a clear and well thought out paper. It was surprisingly easy to read it and then to relate it back to the original business case. And I think the format that it was put was very helpful. I was also very encouraged reading through it to see that while there is no material adverse change, and I do accept the possible exception of the reduction in the environmental benefits should council not invest in those. But there's still considerable improvement in both the economic aspect and the security of it, it seemed to me, from the original business case. I look forward to seeing what Deloitte's make of that in peer reviewing all those figures to give us confidence around that. But I did find that the position, if anything, has strengthened since the original business case. And so that's an encouraging aspect of it, and we look forward to seeing that put under scrutiny.
Thank you. Seconder.
Oh, yes, I'd like to second it. I also would like to echo the comments of that it's a clear paper, read well, fitted well. At the end of it, I thought, well, I understood that pretty easily. That's pretty good. So I thought that's a big plus. But I just want to come back to the point I made in questions about the electricity. And I say so because I've read that March was the highest record temperature globally ever, smashed all records this year. 1 point over a cent over over 1.07 degrees centigrade hotter than the previous. We had a record in February, and we've now had 9 straight month records in a row. And we're heading to what the world scientists say to us is we must not get through the barrier of 2 degrees on average hotter, because it will be catastrophic for our environment. Now, if we're going to make changes to this, it means changes in behaviour. And we're going to have to shift from burning fossil fuels and carbon to renewable resources. Electricity is a renewable resource. And so here we are talking about the environmental flows for this river and what it's going to do for the Tukituki, but we are missing the big picture here. The big picture is the world is heating up, and it's going to be a catastrophe for generations unless we do something. And here we have an opportunity to build a generator, put a generator in, which I was always attracted to immensely. And we find that for commercial reasons, the investor doesn't want it. Well, I think this is a strategic error. We cannot allow short-term commercial objectives to dominate our thinking to the exclusion of all else. So I think there's a wider picture here, and I would welcome the report that you've said that you'll come back to us on the economics of this. I think this council I would encourage this council to think about it seriously for 2 reasons. I think there are 2 compelling reasons. One is the broader issue of climate change and shifting from carbon-based fuels to renewables, of which electricity is a perfect example of that. But as importantly for me is resilience. All of our electricity is generated outside of this region. And in the event of an emergency, we have got little or no capacity here. So here we have an entity, the Regional Council, which is primarily responsible for civil defence and primarily responsible as the environmental regulator. And here we have one opportunity which we can do something about, a generator, and I'm really intrigued, I agree with you, that there's probably another Meg sitting in the head race of free electrons sitting there, waiting for us to pick them all up. All we've got to do is put machinery in place, and we've got all these free electrons zooming around here. And we can then have them available for substituting for carbon-based fuels, and we can have them on tap should there be an emergency and our power generators are cut off. We have our own source of electricity, which I would have thought is pretty goddamn smart. For what? And I think there must be a return in this. If it ain't a return tomorrow or the next day, there will be a massive return in the decades to come, and it will generate more cash, in my view, per dollar invested than what the dam ever will. So I welcome this. I think we need to have a really good discussion about this.